Alright. Chat's being weird as usual. Alright, so today I am painting Primaris Tigurius, the Chief Librarian of the Ultramarines. A model that I found out today is no longer on the GW web store. The consensus seems to be that he will be back, and this is just either getting reboxed for the new edition or something like that. But interesting nonetheless. If he doesn't come back, I will be surprised, to say the least. Do you prefer unicorns or narwhals? Assuming that unicorns can swim in water just like horses can, unicorns. Because then you have an amphibious beast. And amphibiousness is always preferred to pure aquaticness. So I'll go with unicorns. If they can't swim like horses, then I'll go for narwhals just on coolness factor. Alright, so today going to be a little different than normal. One, because I'm talking about unicorns and narwhals, but two, because I'm going to paint this guy using no contrast paint. Mostly just for fun. Contrast paint is a bit of a... I'm not going to say a crutch for me, because I enjoy how it comes out, usually, but definitely something that I gravitate towards. So I'm just going to go with something different this time. I'm going to start off by doing the armor on this guy, and I'm going to use 3 paints that, like I said, he's the Chief Librarian of the Ultramarines, so you're going to be shocked to hear what colors I'm using. So this is a little worn off because I've used it a lot, but this is Ultramarine Shadow from Reaper. This is Ultramarine Blue from Reaper. And this is Ultramarine Highlight from Reaper. Like I said, I know, it's shocking, but these are the 3 paints I'm going to use to paint this guy's armor. So we're going to start with Ultramarine Shadow, which, you can't see the label, but it's there, I promise. It's called Ultramarine Shadow. I'm just going to give it a good shake, and then I'm just going to base coat all of the armor in this color. Ooh, drop paint on the floor. Alright. So here we go. So yeah, I'm just going to base coat all the armor in this color. And it's going to be tricky because I don't know exactly what is armor and what's cloth in here. Obviously, you should be able to tell the difference between armor and cloth. But GW sculpts in such hard defined edges that sometimes it makes it unclear. I think this right here is the cloth, but it's sculpted, like I said, at such a hard edge that it almost looks like it could be his armor. So we just got to be careful about that. The great thing about this model is that he has this Ultramarine symbol here, but he is a librarian, so it wouldn't necessarily be out of the realm of possibility that he could have that symbol still and be in a different chapter. So realistically, you could run him in almost any chapter just as a normal librarian. The Tigurius on the banner might give it away, but I don't think anyone's going to be too picky. Something I have to keep in mind, I was being super careful not to run over anywhere, but I'm not using contrast paint on this guy, so I can be a little more messy than normal and be okay, because I won't have to come in and put contrast paint over areas that I've messed up. So I'm going to do this. I don't have any reference photos of Ultramarines. I'm going to do this basically by memory here. So some things that are supposed to be white might end up gold, and some things that are supposed to end up gold might be white or something like that. But I'm going to do my best to keep it in the Ultramarine colors. Really, if you just get a blue marine painted, then you're kind of good from there. And thankfully, he has the Ultramarine symbol sculpted on him, so I do not have to worry about freehanding that nonsense. Trust me, if you ever find a painter who can freehand the Ultramarine symbol effectively, you make sure to follow them because they are a good painter. They will teach you many things. So that is one of the hardest symbols to get right on a freehand. Right. And I started with the armor just because I like to knock out the big areas first. But I think he's actually got more cloak on him than armor. So maybe I should have started with that. But it's all good. Still quite a lot of armor on him. I have to decide if I'm going to do his cloak in red. I'm choosing between red, purple, or just a neutral color. I think I'm leaning towards a neutral color. But I might just go completely gaudy and go with a color. Make him bright. Stand out a little bit. We'll see, though. All right. I'm trying to be super careful, but I keep forgetting that I'm not using contrast, so I don't need to be careful. Still a good idea to try to paint within the lines as much as possible just for practice. But when you're base coating, it's not essential if you're going to come back with a layer paint and go over it. Like it is with contrast paint, is essentially essential. It is essential that you do not paint over areas in a dark contrast that you're going to need to put a light contrast on. Oh yeah, his backpack. I was just about to say that this shoulder pad is the last bit of blue on him, but of course his backpack needs to be done also. And I did zenithal this guy, even knowing that I was going to do not use contrast on this guy, because it helps. Even if you're not going to see any of it under the paint, it helps to know where your highlights and shadows are going to go, if you're going to go that route. I'm not sure I'm going to go the route of actual volumetric lighting. But if I do, then the undercoat of zenithal will help significantly. Again, not that you'll actually see any of it, just to recall in my brain where those highlights and shadows were. But like I said, I think I'm probably just gonna go basic edge highlighting on this guy, so volumetric lighting is not really a thing if I'm just gonna do that. Volumetric lighting just means that each volume, so if you think of a 3D shape like a sphere or a cylinder, volumetric lighting means some part of that volume is the deepest color and some part of that volume is the lightest color, and then you have colors in between. I've always heard that 5 colors is where you really want to be. 5, I think 5 being your brightest, 1 being your darkest. Might be reversed, I'm not sure. But you have 5 steps, basically. I'm only going to do 3, and I'm not even sure I'm going to do that. But basically what it means is that if you have a cylinder like this, for instance, this is a spotlight, so this is your 1 or your 5. Again, I can't remember which way it goes. This is your lightest, and then you move down the spectrum, and then down here is your darkest. That's all volumetric lighting is. As opposed to I mean, the Citadel paint style still does use it to greater or lesser extent, but a lot of painters you see who are not incredible professionals, like me, for instance, will just do double edge highlights, just paint a color and then edge highlight one color and then smaller edge highlight the next color. That doesn't reflect how light actually works in the real world, but it is a way to lay down color and have it look decent. So I'm just going to do a second coat of this ultramarine shadow. This one will be quicker than the first, though. Just in the places where this color went on thin. Just going to go back over so we have a uniform color across the model. One day I think I will maybe try to explore really getting into painting my models volumetrically, but especially like for this show, and honestly like painting more than just a figure, I don't think it's practical. If I'm painting an army, I don't want to spend that much time. Practical for me, I should say. There are many people who've painted entire armies like that. For me, I don't think it's practical, though. Possibly one day, if I've been doing it a long time and have gotten really good at it. Possibly. But for now, I think I'll stick to just some edge highlights. I'm not trying to win any paint competitions. So, edge highlighting will work just fine for the tabletop. Well, touched my paint, but it was still a little wet there, so I tore the surface a little bit. I'm just going to stipple back on top of it and then leave it alone and not touch it for a minute. Just checking the feet. A little bit up there. Alright. So now we have a good ultramarine shadow color laid down. I'm going to go to the next color, which is, well, maybe not quite yet. Maybe I'll do something else first. I'm thinking about this miniature, and I keep, I was looking at this wrapping here, and I'm like, right, snakebite leather. But nope, not going to use contrast. 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 All right. So I'm going to go, basically, if I'm not using contrast, my next go-to paints are Scale 75. I just so often use contrast now that I rarely break these out anymore. But this is probably my next favorite brand after Citadel. So I'm just going to use some brown leather. And I'm going to almost drop it on the floor. And I'm just going to put that all over the staff here. This looks like it's like some filigree or something on this staff. I should have looked at more pictures of him, but I think it actually can be kind of fun to just look at a picture and then some number of hours, days, whatever later, go back and paint the miniature, because you'll still have you'll sort of have the basic color palette in your brain, but you won't remember exactly what it is. And I personally think that painting the miniatures exactly how they appear in the art, or sorry, in the like on the web store, for instance, is boring. I may be a little biased, I guess, because I can't replicate those results. So maybe if I could replicate a heavy metal team paint job, I would have a different opinion. But currently, my opinion is that it's boring to try to replicate those paint jobs. But, that's like what the kid who gets benched on the soccer team says. Well, soccer's boring. Was it boring before you got benched, or did you always think it was boring? Oh, you only thought it was boring after you got benched. Got it. Sort of the same deal. So, if I could replicate that, then maybe I wouldn't think it was so boring. Alright, so there's that. The blue looks like it's probably dry enough now. So I'm going to go on to the ultramarine blue for our second layer. And I think I'm just going to lay this down completely over this first color. This ultramarine blue is a little more transparent. And so having the deep blue under it will help it apply better. My paint seems to have a clog, so I'm just going to try to unclog that real quick, and then I'll get back to painting. Let's just see. There we go. All right. Put the cap on and I saw a little blue fleck fly somewhere. Hopefully it didn't hit the miniature. We'll see. Can happen sometimes. Your paint, for whatever reason, sends a little splash of paint out and it hits your miniature mid paint job. And it's like, ugh. I don't think it did hit though. So I'm just going to take this and apply it straight over top of our blue here. Like I said, we are going to be covering up completely this first coat of blue, but having it underneath will help make this blue appear bluer, basically, or appear more full. You could absolutely leave some of this and like blend it down and stuff like that, but I am not going to do that. I'm just going to paint right over it. It may end up staying in some of the deepest recesses just by the nature of my brush not making it in there. And I may come back and put it in the recesses depending on how this blue looks. I may go back. But I think I'll probably just do some pin washing with Nuln Oil, and then move on to the highlight. It's funny seeing people message me on my phone who are not watching my stream. They could just be they could just ask me whatever they're trying to ask me on stream. But no, they're not watching. Loss. Big loss for them. And as far as I know, they're not watching, I guess. The Facebook who's watching tracker is notoriously terrible. So they could be watching, to be honest, but I don't think they are. All right. Trying to think through where my pin washing brushes are, and I don't know off the top of my head, so we might be doing the roughest pin washing you've ever seen with this brush I'm using now. We'll have to see. Not necessarily the end of the world, but it would be better if we had the real thing. Basically, you just want to brush with a set of very stiff bristles, almost like a pen. You're using your brush almost like a pen, basically, and just going in between the panel lines and stuff. But I don't know where that brush is at the moment, so we'll do the best we can. Alright, that's most of the blue gotten, I think. It's good enough. So there's that. Now I'm going to do... The armor is basically done for any color that we're going to apply completely to the whole surface. So I'm going to go on and do the cloak now. I think I've convinced myself I'm going to do a neutral color. I do his banner in red, so I'll do this in a neutral color. And I have a feeling it's a neutral color in the art. I'm going to use walnut from scale 75. The thing about scale 75 paint that I really love is you can even probably see it here, is that you can see how incredibly matte that dries. Like, even down here on the leg, this paint is dry now. Compared to this, though, this is still semi-gloss. That's pure matte right there. So, it's a nice feature. It also can be annoying if you're not looking for a super matte finish. For instance, it's not great for applying to armor because it can look too matte. But armor can still look good in it. It won't have as realistic of a sheen as real armor might. But also, there's nothing that says you have to paint for realism, so... If you just want a super matte finish on your... And just in case anyone is unfamiliar, matte just means not shiny. It's not that fancy of a word, but people may not be aware. But, yeah, when I say it dries super matte, it just dries super not shiny. Compared to Citadel paint and Reaper paint, which dries... Not gloss, but I'd call it a semi-gloss. It's just a tiny bit shiny. Not shiny enough to throw off a paint job, but shiny enough to be noticed if it's sitting next to a matte paint. Unicorns. Necron horses with spikes on their heads. Yeah, I'm with you on unicorns. Unless, like I said earlier, if they can't swim like horses. Because if they swim just like horses can, then awesome. Amphibious creatures are always better. But if they can't swim like horses, then I'm going to take the narwhal. Oh, unicrons. My bad. Yeah, that makes more sense. I was kind of confused about why the Necrons were factoring into this discussion, but that makes a lot more sense. Unicrons. Yeah. I get you now. I can't get behind those being your favorite. Well, I can get behind them being your favorite. I can't get them... They're not my favorite. I think the Necrons should be purged from the galaxy so that the Dark Eldar can reign supreme. However, to each his own. Alright, so here's that piece of cloth that I thought was potentially part of his armor earlier. I'm trying to decide if I want to do this under tunic a different color. I think I will. I'm going to do that like a cream color, I think. Rinse my brush off. It was getting a little frayed at the edges there. Anytime you want to purge Necrons, bring those Grey Knights. Yeah. Grey Knights are currently... Haven't even seen any rumors about their new codex. I mean, granted, I just played the old one, obviously. But... kind of waiting for the old one, or the new one probably, before I play any more games with them. You never know. Never say never. But it's also much easier to wait for games right now because of the whole global pandemic thing. If this were a normal year and some armies had new codexes and mine didn't, I'd be playing every single week and weekend just like I used to. But it's a lot easier to just say, I'll just wait right now. It's not contrast paint. You're correct. It's not. It's crazy, I know. Alright. I think that's all his cloak. It looks right. Oh, maybe right up in here. There we go. Alright. That should be his cloak done. He likes one-trick ponies. Yeah, you're not wrong. But I like one-trick ponies and then taking like 6 of them. That's the way forward. Don't worry, I've contacted Duncan and the authorities should be by any moment now. Thank goodness. As long as they're in masks, I will accept that. Although I will admit to several billion years worth of Smite envy. Yeah, that Smite spam for a while was kicking it up into high gear, and then maybe that's why we have a global pandemic. The world could not handle the Grey Knights being anywhere near the meta, and so they were just like, shut it down. This year is not going to happen. Let us get the new Space Marine Codex out, some Xenos Codexes out, make sure these Grey Knights are back in the dirt where they belong, then we can figure this out. Masks and gallons of contrast medium. Wow. All right. So I'm going to do the banner now, the base coat of the banner anyway. I'm going to use Deep Red, again, from Scale 75. Sounds legit. I mean, I could see it. The whole GWHQ sitting up there. Guys, we gave Grey Knights one too many buffs. They might actually be decent. What do we do? And that's what they came up with. So I'm just going to base coat the whole banner in this color. You know, for being called deep red, this isn't that deep, I'll be honest. It looked a lot deeper in the bottle. Might need to switch. Was that this color? Yeah, it was. What the heck? These colors look nothing like each other. Whatever. Just have to ink it down. Get my bottle of liquid skill out. The original liquid skill, that is. Not contrast. And fix this right up. Alright. Getting all the nooks and crannies up here. Oh, and I should mention, this man is technically the original thought to painting this guy was, ooh, the next paint competition is all about faces. And he has a face. Then I decided to do my whole no contrast thing. So that kind of took the theme and ran with it. But the original idea was he has a face. Let's paint him so that people can see how to paint a face. I'm sure people already know how to paint a face, and honestly, learning how to paint a face for me is probably not going to be that helpful. But in a speed painting situation, it might be, because I'm going to paint a face quickly. Maybe I'll do that right now. I'll work on the face real quick. All right, that's good. Deep red that isn't deep, done. Now I'm going to go to the face. I'm going to get Gulliman. Wait, no, not Gulliman flesh tone. Cadian flesh tone. As much as it might make sense for a member of the Ultramarines to have a flesh color named after their Primarch, Not today. So I'm just going to base coat the face in this color. Sort of like a medium, slightly tanned Caucasian skin color. I have a habit of painting pretty much every model I paint with Caucasian skin tone. And that's because I'm just straight terrible at painting other skin tones. I wish I was good at painting other skin tones. I did a commission where I painted the Takedo board game miniatures for people. And they're all like Japanese, I think Japanese, maybe Korean. And so I had to learn how to paint a more Asian complexion. Yeah. So I did that, but like dark skin, or what the Earthlings would call like African American or African skin tones, I can't do it. It just looks stupid. It looks just like, oh yeah, there's some brown on his face. He might be African, or he might just have been like single base coat and forgot about the rest of it. I'm terrible at it. I really need to learn, because diversity, as in life, is good in Warhammer 40k, or really in any miniature game. And I'm not able to paint salamanders because I can't execute the skin tone, so why even bother? Alright, so there's the base coat. Now I'm going to find some Reichland Flesh Shade, but not the gloss variety. If I have any. Agrax Earthshade. I might not have any. At least not any handy. Alright, we'll use Agrax Earthshade. That's fine. Not that different. Reichland Flesh Shade's a little softer, but this will work just fine. So then I'm just going to put this, after I get rid of this stray bristle on my brush. There we go. Alright. Just going to put this over the skin tone here. And if the skin tone is a little wet still, that's okay, because these two will mix together and make this wash a little bit softer to not completely darken his skin too much. Just enough so there's some definition on his cheekbones and stuff. That's really all you're looking for. That'll work. Then I'm going to take some of the other GW skin color, if I have it. Here it is, which is Kislev Flesh. And I'm just going to do a quick edge highlight sort of on this guy with it. Basically just, here we go. See if it'll focus. Sort of focus on my fingers instead of the miniature. Oh, close enough. So I'm just going to do it on the bridge of the nose here. The cheekbones just a little bit. Eyebrows. And then upper lip and chin. Really the most important part is the bridge of the nose. Everything else, the bridge of the nose sticks out the most. As long as that's a different color, you're good. Especially, like I said, in speed painting. So then, I'm going to get, I think I'll use Corvus Black for this. I'm going to do the eyes. This is the point where we can mess it up the most. But for speed painting, this is pretty much as good as we're going to get. So I'm going to take my black, in this case Corvus Black, and I'm going to paint the entire eyeball in this color. Okay, got a little bit on the eyelid, which we can clean up in just a second. Okay. Alright, I just need to look at this off camera just so I can see exactly where my paint is. Okay. So then I'm just going to come back with the Kislev flesh and get that. Actually, I'll use the Cadian. Sink the eyes in a little bit by using a darker color. Not too much darker, but I'm just going to correct the little bits that we got on the eyelid. There we go. Same thing over here. Wonderful. All right. So then I'm going to see if I can find a super small brush. If not, I'll just have to use this brush and pray. Here we go. This will work. So we got a very thin brush here. There you go. And I'm going to take my go-to white, which is Vampiric Highlight. Give it a good shake. And I'm going to put this, just going to try to dot this in the corner of each eye. All right. So we're going to take this. We're just going to try to dot it in there. We'll probably get too much to begin with, and we did. At least on that one. We'll try again on this one. Ooh, too much again. Okay. And then I'm just going to come back in with my Corvus Black and try to even out the irises, pupils, whatever part of the eyeball we're trying for here. There we go. And then the same thing over here. All right, and then I'm going to take that same, whatever this is, Cadian flesh tone again. And again, we're just going to underline the eyes just a little bit, just so we're not going down onto the skin with any part of this eyeball color. There we go. Same thing on this side. All right, so there you go. They're not obviously up close. They're anything but good looking. But if we zoom out a little bit, there we go. From the tabletop, they'll look fine. That's all that matters. Especially, like I said, in speed painting. As long as there's something there, then we'll be all good. So then I'm just gonna take a little bit more of this white. I think his teeth are showing in this. Maybe a little bit. And I'm just going to sketch in his teeth just a little bit here. Just as something. And then I'm going to take, just like I've applied paint before, just take a little bit of this red, the deep red I used on the banner, and some water on my brush. And just very, very gently put in a little bit of color on his lips. You don't want it to look like lipstick. Just want it to be a slight shade of red. Just so there's something there. And his face is hidden sort of by this collar of his, so really just something there and you'll be fine. Alright. Zoom out just a little bit. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to edge... well, no, I'll pin wash first. I'm going to pin wash the armor with Null Oil. So what I'm going to do for that, same brush that I used on my face. Well, not my face, Tigurius' face. I'm just going to find all the little recesses here, like right here. And I'm just going to put this in them. Doesn't have to be super precise, but the more precise it is, the better it will look. This is not the brush I really wanted to do this with, but I'm not sure where that is. So it really can be done with almost any brush as long as you have a good point. A firm point works better though. Put it all over that. And then there. Under the knee pad is a good spot to do it. Actually going to switch back to my other brush. Don't like that brush as much. Put it down here. And in here. This guy has so much detail on him that it's almost not necessary in a lot of places. But it can still help. The backpack is a good spot that it'll help. Shoulder pad is another good spot for it, just in there. And it looks like we're hitting a lot more than just the recess, but once it dries, the darkness will just be preserved in the recess, and the really just the almost water that is on the bigger part of the shoulder pad will dry up, and we'll be all good. Just a little bit there. I think I'm going to paint these joints a different color, but just in case I don't, I'll put some in there. And then some in there. Alright, so there just changes that a little bit. Now I'm going to get my third ultramarine color here. Ultramarine highlight, and this is going to be our first edge highlight. This paint too is clogged. It's been a while since I've used these paints. Contrast has caused a lot of my paints to get clogged up, apparently. There we go. All right. So for me personally, a lot of people are different, but for me, I like to have my brush very dry when I do my edge highlighting, because I don't want my paint to run too much. I want it to be stuck on the brush and not running all over the place. So I don't want it to be any thinner than it already is. So now I'm just going to start with the knee pad here and just very carefully draw in my edge highlights. You just want to go slow. You don't want to mess up an edge highlight in the middle. I think in the interest of time, I'm just going to do the full edge highlighting process on this leg and then call it a day. But I think I'll return to Tigurius next Monday. Finish him up then. Or maybe not finish him up. Maybe finish him up the week after that. We'll see. But there's still quite a bit to do on him, and I don't really want to rush through him. And I don't have a long-term project on Fridays anymore. So having Tigurius take a few Mondays I don't think will be a problem. So I'm going to do an edge highlight right under the kneecap here. This isn't necessarily where you'd have one, because a lot of this area would be in shadow, but I think it looks good on the miniatures, so. Especially on the Primaris guys who have these pronounced kneecaps. Alright, then I'm just going to do one on the edge of the toe here. There we go. Alright, so there's the first layer of edge highlights down. So then I'm going to take some... I think I'm just going to go 3 stages of edge highlight here. So I'm going to go with LED blue from Reaper. This is a very big jump from our first edge highlight, but I think it'll be okay. You could do as many jumps as you want on edge highlights, but 3 I think is fine. So I'm just gonna do basically the middle third of these edges in this color. I'm gonna mess the very first one up. Awesome. This paint doesn't dry very quickly, so I was able to just wipe it off, but it's just funny that I messed the very first one up. So yeah, like I said, the middle third of the first color we laid down we'll do in this LED blue. So what that just means is this edge highlight is however long, and just the middle part of it will get this second color. And on this one, I'm going to do 2 different thirds, basically. One on each side of the kneecap. Like that. So then, like here. Just there. Just on the very edge of the toe. And same thing on that. And then I'm also going to do this on the corners. Like that. On the super sharp corners. And just extend a little ways out on those. Alright, so there's the second color. And then for the last color, I'm just going to use some of the vampiric highlight from earlier. Oh, we used it on the eyes, yeah. And I'm just going to do dot of vampiric highlight I had on the palette is so small that it dried up under the ceiling fan I have here. So just get a new drop of that. And then I'm just going to do it in the very center of that second color we put on. And on the very extreme corners of everything. Brush point trying to betray me here. I think I'll put one right here also. And then there needs one there. Alright. And there's the edge highlighting process on that leg done. We'll do that all across his body. I might clean some of them up a little bit, just with the original color here. This one just might be sticking out a little too much, so we'll just take the base coat and bring them back down. Same with up here, because we just want them on the edge, nowhere else. So I might be sticking too far down here. There we go. This one's definitely too big. Those all look, well, no. I was going to say those all look fine, but this doesn't look fine down here. There we go. Alright. So there's the process we're going to do basically across all his armor. But for now, Monday Night Football is on. I would like to go watch it. This is definitely different than a lot of the stuff I've been doing. And I myself have even said that I don't really like watching very small bits of miniatures get painted for a long period of time. So I'm going to try to finish this guy up next week. Go a little faster. Maybe try some different techniques for highlighting. Maybe not that edge highlight technique across the whole miniature. But we'll see. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. On Wednesday, I'll be on the main Galactic channel doing something more beginner focused, probably with contrast paint, but we'll see. Other than that, I'll be back on Friday doing something related to Warhammer. Thank you everybody for watching again, and I'll see you next time.